So you just win a bowl. You just win a glass bowl. What? All of that just for a glass bowl? And I'm like, yeah, well, do you do it for the glory, not for the financial rewards.
I'm delighted to welcome back to All Things Quiz John Robinson, the 2025 Mastermind Champion. Congratulations, John. That's an amazing achievement.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gareth. Great to be here.
I mean, it's a big old thing winning Mastermind, and at the end of it, you get a glass bowl. Let's have a look at that trophy.
Do indeed. I have it right here. There we go. It's sitting proudly next to me.
Obviously, you carry that with kid gloves wherever you carry it because it's one of kind, isn't it? You don't get those off the shelf.
Yeah, I think it's kind of bespoke each year. In fact, it was interesting because obviously the new series has just started broadcasting, and they cut to a shot of the glass bowl from this year, which is slightly different from mine. I sort of noticed, oh, there's a slightly different design and pattern on it. But yeah, rather precious. I did take it into school where I work because the head teacher wanted to see it, and some of the kids were saying, "Oh, can we see it?" So I was very careful about who was picking it up and making sure none of my really naughty students picked it up to try and get revenge or anything.
Yeah, well, always a little bit of jeopardy when you got something like that, but what a lovely memento to have from winning. It's been quite a while since it was broadcast as we speak, and even longer since you recorded the final. How was it, having that wait between, was it probably November last year and whenever it was, April this year? How was it kind of waiting that long and then having the reveal and all the attention?
Yeah, I guess it was about 6 months in total between the filming and the broadcast. So yeah, it was bizarre. So I tried to just sort of put it to the back of my mind in a way, really, and almost kind of forget that it happened. I didn't really tell anybody other than sort of very closest family members. I didn't sort of tell friends or colleagues or anything because I thought I don't want anything getting leaked. So yeah, I tried to almost sort of just forget it happened for a while, and then it was nice to be able to relive it all when it was broadcast.
In terms of what happens as a mastermind champion once it's revealed, what's the kind of the press demand on you and the level of interest?
More than I expected, to be honest. But I think that's partly not just because of the win, but also there was a more exciting story that the press got their hands on. But myself and Claire, who was obviously the runner-up, ended up becoming a couple afterwards. So I think the press were much more interested in that than they were in the actual winning of the bowl. But yeah, I think compared to say when I was on Millionaire and won 500,000 on that, and I did have a bit of press interest. This was 10 times as much, to be honest. I had requests from like radio stations in Ireland and Australian TV company wanting an interview of various things, and there was a time where I thought I need a media manager or something to fit in all these things. But no, it was really a really nice experience, and yeah, then the production team are really good helping with any kind of media requests and stuff. So yeah, it was just all really positive.
And that angle with yourself and Claire, that's a lovely angle. Did you kind of debate between yourselves of actually is that something we want to keep out of the press and keep to us, or was it, what was your thought process there? Because as soon as the press can latch onto something, that it could be spun in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, it was. We hadn't really sort of discussed. We'd kind of just said, well, we'll just if it comes out naturally, then we're happy for people to know. But we didn't say, we're going to go and sell our story to the Sun or anything. And actually, it just happened kind of coincidentally that a reporter had gone to from because Claire lives in Stratford, had gone round to it's kind of a local reporter, gone round to her house to have a chat to her about her experience, and I happened to turn up because we had plans to go out that evening, knocked on the door, and then suddenly the reporter was clearly like, hang on, what's going on here? And then as a result of that, yeah, they obviously had the Stratford Herald had the exclusive, and it then obviously got they must have fed back to national press and stuff, and it all came out from there. But again, it was all really positive, all really nice comments, lots of people being really positive about that. So yeah, two nice things that have come out of it.
That must have been the biggest scoop in the Stratford Herald history.
Yeah, we got on the front page of all the local Stratford papers.
Wonderful. And you mentioned taking the bowl into school. How did the kids respond? Because I think we've spoken to a number of teachers who've done quizzes, TV quizzes, and most of the time the kids aren't really bothered at all by the fact that their teacher's on there because they don't watch the shows, they don't it's not of interest to them. But winning something like Mastermind even now must percolate the consciousness. How did they react?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Again, like you say, a lot of them hadn't heard of Mastermind beforehand. I sort of mentioned to the classes that I teach, or you might want to turn on and see me on this. Obviously, the production crew had come in to film a little VT of me at school as well. So some of them were part of that. They interviewed a few kids for that. But yeah, I was amazed at how many of them knew about it and had watched it. Even kids who I don't teach sort of stop me in the corridor and say, "Oh, you were on that quiz show, weren't you? That you won, well done." And I think the thing that surprised them most is the fact that there was no monetary prize. They were all just saying, "What? So you just win a bowl? You just win a glass bowl? What? All of that just for a glass bowl?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, do you do it for the glory, not for the financial rewards."
Well, I mean that's wonderful. And having won that title, having like a big title under your belt, has that changed how you think of yourself as a quizzer? Is it, you're now in the echelons of people you presumably looked up to previously. Does it change how you think about yourself?
Obviously, I went into the show thinking I had a reasonable chance, maybe, of doing well. But I'd never really kind of considered what it would be like to win because, like you say, so many of the greats of the quizzing world have won it. And I don't really, although I'm a decent quizzer, I don't really think of myself as being up there with, the Pat Gibsons and the Kevin Ashmans of this world. So to now, you like a little thing to see my name on the Wikipedia page of Mastermind winners. It's a very surreal experience, and one that I guess is going to be with me for life. So yeah, it's a brilliant feeling.
You get to the final after playing a first round and semi-final. Did you kind of learn as you went about, how to do well in Mastermind, or did you, were you, kind of on plan right from the start? Were there things you picked up along the way that helped you in the final?
No, I think my strategy was probably the same from the beginning. The main thing is I wanted to make sure that I didn't pass at all, and I just answered as quickly as possible. So even if I couldn't remember it straight away, I would just throw out a wild answer rather than wasting time thinking. And from the first match, that sort of served me well. So I just sort of kept that up really in the semi and the final. I don't really think my strategy changed. Maybe in the final, I was relatively quick in answering every round throughout the heat and the semi, but in the final, I guess maybe I sped up even further because Claire put down a monster score in general knowledge, so I knew I had to just be lightning fast to try and get through as many as possible.
You did Empire State Building as your specialist subject, having done a couple of art subjects previously. Um, what was the thinking behind Empire State Building for the final?
Well, it's funny because the way the process works, I'm sure the producer won't mind me saying, but for anyone who doesn't know, you put forward initially a whole range of specialist subjects, some of which they'll accept, some of which they might say, no, we can't do this one. So the Empire State Building was sort of a relatively last minute decision. It wasn't one of my original topics, but various other ones I put forward were rejected for various reasons. And I was sort of, I'd always known I wanted to do something maybe related to New York. I've always kind of had a bit of a fascination with New York and the kind of history and architecture of the city. And I saw someone a few years ago do Central Park, or like the history of Central Park, which I remembered as being quite a good subject because, of course, you've got to be quite canny about it as well and try and choose something that's quite sort of finite. So I initially put forward the Statue of Liberty because I actually watched a documentary relatively recently about the making and history of the Statue of Liberty. For whatever reason, that got rejected. And then I said, how about the Empire State Building? And that one got accepted. And I wanted to choose something as well that I did have an interest in. So, as I say, I've always been interested in New York. But equally, I didn't want to choose something that I knew really well already because I wanted it to be something where I could, I was going to spend 2 or 3 months with this topic. So I wanted it to be something that I could sort of learn afresh and not be sort of sick of reading over stuff that I already knew really well.
Presumably, you've lost a lot of that detail now. You've got an understanding of the subjects, and you could talk in general terms with some facts, presumably, but a lot of the finer details have evaporated.
Yeah, funnily enough, I went to a pub quiz a couple of months after doing the final, and there was a tiebreaker question at the end, which was how many steps are in the Empire State Building from the from the ground to the ceiling, and I completely could not remember at all, which is the sort of thing I would have just had straight away 2 or 3 months previously, but I just because I hadn't looked at it, it like you said dropped out my short-term memory, and I knew sort of roughly, but I couldn't remember the exact figure, yeah, whereas I would have known the exact figure, like I say, off pat a few weeks beforehand.
So you got 12 in that specialist subject, which was there were four of you got 12, two got 10. So if you didn't know before, you certainly knew at that point that this was going to come down to fine margins. And you don't get a huge amount of time, do you, between your first round and getting into general knowledge? So what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, I knew at that point that obviously I'd be going last in general knowledge, which I was quite pleased with, because then you know what mark you've got to beat. And in fact, that in all three of my episodes, I went last in general knowledge, which I was quite pleased about. Um, but I thought it is just going to come down to fine margins. Everyone here is clearly really, really good. It's going to come down to whether or not someone has a couple of unlucky slips, or someone just manages to have the right set of questions. And unfortunately, I managed to have the right set of questions on the day. But if I had someone else's questions, I could well not have got as many as I got in GK. So it is a massive amount of luck as well as kind of hard work.
Yeah, I mean, and there always is in any quiz, isn't it? If the right questions don't fall for you or don't fall for you, it can make a big difference, but you still have to perform. As the round was progressing, Dom pushed the target out to 25, which meant you needed 13 to equal him. And in your heats and semis, you'd scored 12 and 13 on general knowledge. Were you keeping track of what you were going to need? And when Dom pushed it out to 13, you're thinking, okay, well, I've got 13 before, but were you thinking about that, or were you in your own zone?
Yeah, very much. After each contestant went up, I sort of was mentally ticking off, thinking, right, I need to get 9 now to win, or I need to get 10 now to win, or I need to get 12. So obviously it was going up with each person. And as I said beforehand, Dom was the main person who I sort of had knowledge of.
Mm.
So without any disrespect to the other contestants, he was the person who I was most worried about. So when he got 25, I did think, okay, that is beatable. I think I could potentially get 13, having no real knowledge of Claire and how good she was. So when she then sat down
Yeah.
and got 17, I was like, oh, this is just ridiculous. And every time a question came up, or as much as I was trying to sort of zone out and just focus on myself, obviously I was kind of listening to Claire's general knowledge. And anytime sort of a hard, what I would consider to be a hard question came up, I'd think, oh, maybe she won't get this. And then she would get it. And I think, oh no, she's getting all of these. And yeah, and then when I wasn't keeping tally on how many she was getting, but then when Clive Murray announced that she was on 29, I was like, I mean, I think this is unassailable.
I mean, it was a huge score at 17. It was incredible, and you know, you would be forgiven for thinking, okay, now I've just got to answer really fast, and and almost kind of throw strategy out of the window because you probably can't afford any errors, maybe one error, and you still got to be very quick. But you seemed very calm nonetheless.
Well, first off, I couldn't even believe that there'd be enough time to get through 18 questions, which is the minimum that I would need if I hadn't got any wrong. Because in my heats and semi, although I'd got 12 and 13 in my GK, I'd only really got 2 or 3 wrong each time.
Mm.
So I thought I've only ever got through about 15 or 16 questions in the time. So I thought I'm just gonna, I guess I was reasonably relaxed in the sense that I didn't really think there was a chance I could get through that many questions. But yeah, I still thought, as I had in the other 2 rounds, I'll just power through as quickly as I can. And just see where it takes me. And obviously, when you're in the chair, you're not keeping tally on how many you've got right. So I had no idea until the very end.
But you do have a sense of momentum, don't you? Because I think if you're getting answer right after time after time, that can just speed you up, speed Clive up. Whereas if it's punctuated by incorrect answers, that can shake you and slow you. It slows Clive. So you must have known, even if you didn't know when the buzzer went, you must have known you'd put in a good shift.
Yeah, and I think the thing you said there about speeding Clive up, I think is important as well, because I do think when the contestants rattle through the questions quickly, I do think he sort of unconsciously speeds up. Whereas, like you say, if people are stumbling themselves or getting things wrong, or he's having to say the correct answer, it does slow the flow of the whole thing down. And there's been a lot of, I remember seeing your interview with Stuart Fields, who won a few years ago, and he had the exact same strategy about just trying to get through things as quickly as possible. Johnny Gibson, again, who won a recently, very similar. So I do think it is that, like you say, that momentum, just trying to get through as quickly as possible, getting sort of like a rhythm, and then yeah, fortunately it paid off.
So when the buzzer went, there is that moment between, the quiz ending, and you finding out the result. Did you have a sense of I'm close, or because you wouldn't have known that you'd won,
Yeah, no,
but did you have a sense that you'd actually, you'd pushed it close at least?
I knew I'd done reasonably well. I knew obviously I got a fair few right. I didn't really know whether I'd got 12 right, 15 right, 18 right. So if he'd said, you've got 25, it wouldn't have surprised me. If he said you've got 27, it wouldn't have surprised me. The fact he said 30, I guess it did surprise. I don't think I expected to get that many. I didn't think that I'd got 18 right.
When you're told you've won, what happens next?
So obviously I went back to my chair, and all of that is still sort of being filmed live.
Hmm.
The other contestants saying well done. Clive reads out the final scores, and then there's a slight pause just for a few minutes, really, because they have to go and fetch the glass bowl and get it ready and get Clive ready with it. And in that little gap, we had a chance to have a little chat amongst ourselves, amongst the contestants and everyone, because they were genuinely all lovely people. We're just saying how well I'd done, and we're really pleased. And no, I think if it were the roles were reversed and I'd narrowly lost, I don't think I would have been quite as magnanimous as Claire and some of the other ones were. I think I might have been stewing in my seat a bit. But everyone was genuinely just saying how delighted they were for me and how well I'd done. So it was just a really nice little moment between the six of us while the production team were sorting their things out.
So then they present you with the bowl. Presumably you do a little bit of an interview, um, and then once the studio side of things is dealt with, what happens then?
So they do the presentation and obviously finish that bit of the filming. Then the rest of the contestants got kind of taken away for a little bit while I did my individual little interview to camera that they rolled just before the credits. And then we all were heading back to our various homes. But we all had about half an hour to an hour before we were getting taxis and stuff back to airports. So we all went back to the hotel, which was just around the corner from the studios, and the six of us had a chance to have the six of us plus there were two reserves as well, who have to be there for the whole time, who both of whom were contestants from my semi-final, so the two highest scoring runners up. So we all had a drink between us and just had a good chat, and then all went our various ways, going because there's two different airports in Belfast. As it turns out, Claire and I were the only two flying back from Belfast City. Everyone else was flying back from Belfast International, and said our goodbyes to everyone, and that was that. You don't get to take the bowl with you though. The bowl got posted out a few weeks later.
Okay, well at least they're taking the risk on that one, so exactly, that's fine.
Yeah, I didn't want to have it in my hand luggage in case I suddenly dropped it after a few drinks at the airport.
So after you've won Mastermind and you've been on Millionaire, University Challenge, Only Connect, what is there left for you in broadcast quiz?
I guess the big thing that I would like to do, and I don't know if it'll come back again, but the thing that I think a lot of quizzes want to do is Jeopardy. I don't know if there will be a third series of that. I don't know how what viewing figures were like for the second series. That's really the only other sort of big one that I have my eye on, really. Other than that, there's not really anything that sort of jumps out. So if Jeopardy doesn't come back, then I don't know, maybe I'll take a little break from TV quizzing for a while.
Well, I mean, you did fantastically. It was a great performance, really thrilling final to watch. Just superb. Had us all on the edge of our seats, and that's what you want. Thanks so much for sharing those insights and for telling us about your Mastermind win, which was very well received amongst the quiz community. we're all very, very pleased for you. And we hope that future opportunities do open themselves to you, whether it be Jeopardy or something else. But for now, John Robertson, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to John, who is one of our All Things Quiz Patreons. Our Patreons support the work of the channel through monthly donations, but they also get to take part in quizzes, study groups and other activities. So if you want to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/allthingsquiz.